Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Barbados Welcome Stamp Live. I am Charles Lewis, and I'm your host for today's episode. My guest today is Yvonne Campbell. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. In Barbados, we may pronounce it differently to people in Ireland, who is actually here in Barbados on the Welcome Stamp initiative. Now, apart from being a welcome stamper, Yvonne is also producing and hosting her own podcast, chronicling her experiences during her time here in Barbados. Now, if at any time you would like to join the discussion, feel free to do so. You can simply post a message in the chat room at the bottom of the live stream window, or you can send us a message and I can bring you into the studio. That is if Yvonne and I give you a minute to get in, because I have to admit that I cheated. I met Yvonne yesterday for a drink on the West Coast and got a heads up on everything Yvonne is about. So, and we had, Yvonne, did we have fish cakes and pina colada?
We did indeed, yes. Very
Yes.
stereotypical.
So you can't get any more cultural than that, Yvonne. You know, fish cakes with a Bajan, on the West Coast by a beach. Anyway, Yvonne, I want to thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We have quite an interesting discussion ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to our talks. So tell us a bit about Yvonne. There's an Yvonne in Barbados in Paradise, and there's Yvonne in Ireland. Tell us about Yvonne in Ireland first.
Yeah, so God, quite a lot has changed. Yvonne in Ireland has, changed quite a bit over the last kind of year or so before coming to Barbados. So my background has always been working in the not-for-profit sector, so working with charities or setting up funding programs for charities to apply to. And I've always loved travel. I lived in London for quite a long time, which was a great base for flying away, especially kind of last minute flights to all over the world. But I think it must have been about the year before last, around this time of the year, I was thinking, what could I do this year to kind of change my life up a bit? And I'd always thought about, what could I do in the travel industry? But I didn't really kind of want to work in, a travel agency in a high street store or anything like that. And I researched all my different options and realized that I would be able to set up a travel franchise. So having all the kind of the systems and processes in place, all the financial protections, but actually I would be able to own my own business. So I thought about that for a number of months, did my research and which company I wanted to go with. And I thought maybe I could do that as a bit of a hobby alongside the day job. It worked out I couldn't. I think the demand was really high and I was working 18 hours a day. And I thought, do you know what, actually, I might make the leap and I might be brave enough to finish up in terms of my full-time work and move across into the travel business full-time, which I did. I do lots of volunteering and things like that outside of work. So I continue to do that to get so I'm really kind of passionate about social justice. So I still get my fill in relation to that, but whilst I suppose swapping my hobby and my career. So that's what I was doing over the last kind of year and a bit. But obviously it's been a bit of a challenging year, shall we say, for the travel business. So I've managed to still do some consultancy work in my old career as well. So a bit of both over the last year, I would say.
At some point in time, you obviously heard about the Barbados Welcome Stamp initiative. When did you first hear about it?
So during lockdown last year, I decided to start a podcast that was called the Bucket List Podcast. So for me, it was a way of, I suppose, kind of chronicling my amazing trips that I've had all over the world. I've been to about 58 plus countries and it never kept a diary or anything like that. So I thought, you know what, this is a really good opportunity to, number one, tell a bit of my story and share some of my experiences, but have experts on and local people I met along the way. So actually, I had people from Argentina, people from various different places on the podcast. But the very second podcast in that episode or in that series was around Barbados. Now, Barbados was somewhere I'd never been before, but I always really wanted to go. So I managed to get somebody kind of very knowledgeable who is kind of from Barbados onto the podcast. And at the end of the podcast, I thought, gosh, that's something I absolutely kind of want to do. He had talked about the welcome stamp. It sounded very attractive at the time. And just kind of telling me all about Barbados made me think it was somewhere. First of all, I thought somewhere I just wanted to go on holiday. Fast forward, 4 or 5 months, a dreary November, coming up to the end of November, another lockdown kind of probably around the corner. And I thought maybe it's time to actually kind of, mix things up a bit. So I'd remembered that podcast. I'd remembered about Barbados and the welcome stamp. Did a little bit of quick research again. And that was 9 o'clock on the Thursday, 9 o'clock on the Sunday night. I thought, I think I want to head off somewhere. By 10 o'clock, I thought I'm going to Barbados. And by 8 o'clock the next morning, my flight was booked.
That was an easy decision to make, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
Do I spend lockdown in Ireland? Or do I spend it in Barbados and go to the beach as often as possible?
Absolutely.
It's a major decision to uproot yourself from any country and go to any other country. What were some of the challenges in making that decision, if any at all?
So to be honest, there were no challenges. I'm a bit of if I get an idea in my mind, I'll just kind of go for it. I've taken a bit of time out before where I have kind of sold up my place in London. I went traveling for nearly a year and a half. So I think this time round, it felt really safe. It felt a bit kind of foolproof, really. I had my family saying, well, go. If it doesn't work out, well, we've got bedrooms here. There's actually, you can come stay. You're not going to be homeless. There was some practical issues in terms of that was around probably the 28th, 29th of November. I was due to fly out on the 6th of January, but with restrictions increasing, I ended up bringing forward my travel and rebooked a flight on the 19th of December and flew out on the 22nd. So there was just practicalities around how was I going to move out of my current place.
If I may interject, I have a question. Besides being jealous and others thinking that you're absolutely crazy, what sort of reactions did you have from relatives and friends when you told them that you're going to uproot and go off to Barbados?
Amazing. I am honestly blown away by the support from people back home. So my family were very much, yeah, why not? I would do it if I could. And very much saying, great, we can come on holiday. And then when the restrictions were tightened again, they were the ones saying, go right now. Change your flight and go in the next few days if you can, because you're going to get stuck here. Likewise, friend is equally as supportive. So yeah, I'm very lucky to be surrounded by people who were able to see the positives in it for me rather than, what their life is back home.
Okay, tell me a bit about the application process now. You've decided you're going to go to Barbados. You've got the support of your relatives and your friends, and you're ready to go. Now you need to make that application. Tell us about that.
It was really straightforward. So I had booked my flight before applying for the visa, probably the wrong way around. But I already knew, I had looked up the information on the visitbarbados.org website, which actually outlines everything really clearly, to be honest. There's not much kind of that they don't tell you about that you need to know in order to complete your application. So in terms of that, was easily going to an online form. There was a couple of specific requirements, which were around having a specific level of income throughout the year and also having health insurance in place. And both of those things are, for very good reasons. It's so you're going to be able to support yourself when you come here. So that makes perfect sense. I needed a passport size photograph, which, is quite difficult to get whenever you're in lockdown. So there was, a lot of Googling to how can I take a selfie passport photograph, because I live on my own. So that was probably the biggest challenge of the whole form, actually, getting a decent passport size photograph that I could upload. It asked various different questions, which were straightforward. Probably took me about 10 minutes to fill out the form. I pressed submit, and then a day or two later, I got a reply to say I was accepted. And it's at that point, once you're accepted, that you get a link to make a payment, because there's obviously a fee involved with the visa.
Now that raises a question. How could they approve your application so quickly? It makes me wonder, what is the due diligence process? Was there any due diligence? I mean, did they fact check any of your information?
I suppose I'm not too sure, but I provided evidence of, my contracted kind of income for this year and things through the consultancy work that I was doing. You had to agree to get health insurance, because there was no point in getting that before you knew we were accepted. But certainly I had to kind of, show that on the way in as well. Whenever you are going through, kind of the immigration, there's a specific stamp around kind of welcome stamp. So yeah, it was all in place. So I can't say what they do in the background to that. I know that demand levels go up and down, and I know that others have been waiting quite a bit longer in order to be approved. It could be that I just had it at a good time, maybe.
Okay. I just wondered if they perhaps came back with questions and asked for more information as part of the due diligence process, because when an application to make a move for 1 year to Barbados can be approved so quickly, it does make one wonder, how is this possible? So, and I actually think that the Barbados government was rightfully eager to bring people here because we were suffering so badly as a result of COVID-19. So I'm sure that played a role in quick, decision making, which is fine because you're here now. So I'm glad it was quick for you.
Yeah. And I suppose I'm pretty thorough. Whenever I was asked for information in the form, I'm pretty thorough. So it could be that, where people are asked for follow-up information, it's maybe where they haven't provided it up front. But I don't know. I haven't. I'm going to ask some of the other welcome stampers that I've been speaking to about their experience, because I'm now intrigued by that.
Now, okay, you've got your application approved and you're ready to come to Barbados. What are some of the COVID-19 related challenges in physically coming to Barbados? I'm sure there's all the protocols that were in place at the time and then protocols in Barbados. Tell us a bit about the challenges you face or how COVID-19 impacted on the actual move to Barbados, the physical move to Barbados.
The physical move was pretty straightforward because, from my main worry was if flights were going to be cancelled. So there'll be, I don't know if it's from other parts of the world, but certainly in the UK, their flights were being consolidated because of kind of different demands and so on. So first of all, that was COVID related, but not specifically around kind of COVID protocols. But flying was very straightforward. There was the usual protocols around hand sanitizing, reduced service. There was a few with kind of British Airways, and the usual service you would get in terms of how you would get your food and things had all changed. But it felt very safe, actually. I also had to fill in a form before I came, which I uploaded my negative PCR test. So that had to be done several days before I came. So that was all pretty straightforward as well. And then that was checked on arrival. And again, the usual protocols, social distancing, temperature checks. I would say the protocols here were definitely more strict than they are in the UK. So you get very rarely you get temperature checking in the UK. So for me, actually, it felt very good. It felt very safe because those things were in place.
Did that reassure you when you realize how strict all protocols are here in Barbados?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I think probably in the UK, the protocols that are meant to be in place, that are in place, people treat them with a bit of complacency, shall we say, whereas it was very clear as what was expected of you. The other thing I would really like to say, though, is that I feel it's a real privilege for me to be able to come to this country. And actually, if I'm asked to do something in terms of protocols, I will be following them because, that's the least I can do if the country is opening its doors to me.
Okay, this is like step by step coming to Barbados here. I'm making you relive this experience. Okay, you're at the airport. You've gone through the protocols at the airport. This is your first time to Barbados, so you must have had a reaction just getting off the plane and feeling the heat and feeling I am in Barbados. Tell me about that moment.
Oh, it felt great. So I'm a real kind of gut reaction type of a person. I get, I kind of get really kind of strong feelings. I stepped off the plane. I was like, yes, this is going to work out. I didn't need to have experienced anything more apart from walking down the steps of the plane and feeling the air. There's just something I think, I don't know what it is, but I generally get vibes from places. So that was that alongside, oh my God, it's so hot. I am Irish after all, and I think our summers are definitely won't even match the worst of your days here. Do you know what I mean? So there's definitely a bit of acclimatization that's kind of had to happen. But I was generally really excited. First of all, I suppose working out like I was told about the protocols to get through the airport and so on, and I was going to have a transfer waiting for me, and there was quarantine that was going to be taking place at the hotel. So I didn't really know what to expect because everything was very last minute at the end in terms of where I booked to stay and so on. So I wasn't quite sure what to expect. So I suppose, definitely got the gut feeling of yes, this is going to work out, but also a bit apprehensive, not quite knowing what was ahead of me.
Okay, what about quarantine? How long were you in quarantine?
I was in quarantine for, let me see, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for about 3 nights. And I had to wait an extra day. So the protocols are very different now. I just want to say that. And I think it's really important that anyone considering coming checks most up-to-date information. But I had to stay an extra day in quarantine before getting my test because I came out like a day early. You've got a window in which you can come, which was absolutely fine. There was a bit of a backlog at Christmas time because there was so many visitors to the island. And I was expecting my results to wait a good, kind of 72 hours or so. But I think I had my test on Christmas Eve, and I don't know what happened, who kind of looked down on us and kind of made it all happen. But those who generally get tested on Christmas Eve got the results within 12 to 18 to 24 hours. So I woke up on Christmas morning and I had my test results back, which was amazing. But the protocols at that stage, very different now, but I was able to leave my room to go to the restaurant. I wasn't able to mix with anyone else in the hotel. There was a separate quarantine area just for those who were quarantining. Able to use the pool on timed slots. So again, not allowed to share the pool. But it was very relaxing. The sun was shining. Kind of access to good food and drink. Now it's different where you have to stay in your room. But it was pretty easy.
Okay. Well, for those who've just joined us, you're tuned into BWS Live. I'm your host, Charles Lewis, and with me is Yvonne Campbell, who is hailing all the way from Ireland, and she is a welcome stamper in Barbados. Yvonne is also doing a podcast about her experiences here, and we're going to talk about that shortly. I know she's excited to talk about that. And if you would like to contribute in any way to the discussion, feel free to do so simply by posting a message on Facebook at the bottom of the show window. Now, I hope you're not upset that this meeting, as opposed to the meeting yesterday, does not have any any alcohol or fish cakes like we had yesterday. Okay, so forgive me for that.
It's still early in the day. Don't worry, I'll get over it.
You might get a surprise. You might get a knock on the door and somebody's turned up with a pina colada. Compliments of the host. So, go on, wishful thinking there.
Indeed,
Okay, you're in Barbados. Tell us a bit about differences between Ireland and Barbados in terms of dealing with COVID-19 as you go about your day-to-day activities, shopping, going to the beach, bars. Tell us a bit about that.
Sure. So I think it's a bit of a weird kind of juxtaposition, actually, because in one ways it feels very more relaxed here, but in other ways it doesn't. It feels kind of, there's more restrictions, and I don't mean restrictions in a bad way, but more protocols in place to keep you safe. So at home there's bars, restaurants, all of that's closed. But even when they were open, here, as I say, the temperature checks, the hand sanitizer, make sure when you go in, having hand sanitizer on the tables. There's lots of reminders, and I think people take more notice of the protocols here than they would at home. And I think what I noticed here was a lot of shops have signs up saying if you don't have your mask on, you're not allowed in. And this is before it was mandatory. I think it's mandatory from today or from a few days ago. Yes. But whereas at home, you still get quite a lot of people disregarding that. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people who don't have to wear masks for health reasons, but there was others who just weren't bothering really. So that seems to be, and I haven't been all over the island, but certainly in the places that I have been, people do tend to take more notice of that. I'm sure that's not the case everywhere. Yeah. So it felt like you were able to, it felt like a level of normality. Okay. But at the same time, there was the protocols in place. But I think those protocols are going to last for quite a while. At the end of the day, if you have a cold, like a common cold, you should be washing your hands and not being in close contact with people anyway. So
of course, I haven't been in the travel industry for so many years, and also having gone through the application process to become a welcome stamper here in Barbados, and also you spent time in Barbados, how can the government of Barbados improve the way they handle things? And I want you to be very objective here, and don't be afraid if you say something that you know you think might upset someone. I assure you, we're not going to ask you to leave the island. It is going to be taken in the context.
Excellent, that's good.
that it was given, so not to worry.
I'll lock the door right now.
Yes, okay. But tell us seriously, how can we improve? I would love to get the perspective of someone from another country who has been on the program for a while.
So I think communication in terms of what people can expect. So I think there has been promises made around turnaround timescales of COVID tests and things like that. Now, don't get me wrong, things are always going to happen that come along and impact in that. But I think there were promises made around turnaround timescales, and people may have made decisions based on that to kind of come to the country or not. And those, it's been difficult to keep those timescales. So I think it's kind of open, honest, kind of transparency around some of that, I think would be helpful. And I think the problem in Barbados is it's such a small island. Such a small issue could have such a kind of a bigger impact right across the piece. So I think that's probably one thing that I would pick out. I'm trying to think anything else.
Okay, let me pose another question. We have had to tighten or COVID-19 restrictions. Do you see this becoming a problem for our Welcome Stamp initiative in terms of people deciding not to come anymore, or people deciding to leave the island because of the tighter restrictions?
So I would say it depends where they're thinking and leaving to. But from my experience, actually, and from my perspective, the conditions now are perfect for welcome stampers if you're allowed to travel, because do you know what? You're only going to be quarantining at home, no doubt, or you're going to have restrictions at home wherever you are. For me, coming on the welcome stamp, it's a long-term commitment. I'm here for 12 months. So staying in, kind of quarantine for what might be up to 7 days now with the new plans, that wouldn't be an issue for me, because I've still got another kind of 51 weeks of the year to enjoy it. So I don't think it should put people off.
You're showing off now.
I know.
You're boasting.
So I don't think it should put people off. I think there's always, do you know what? There's always a debate to be had, Charles, which everybody will have to grapple with on their own. And that's their own principles, and some people might call it kind of ethics or whatever. I'm not too sure it is to do with ethics, but everybody needs to take personal responsibility and make a decision if they feel it's right for them to travel right now. I traveled when I was allowed to travel, and kind of it was before the rise of numbers in the island and so on. So I'm in a very different position, but I think people who are thinking about it now, they need to, have a talk to themselves and work out for themselves if it's right for them at this current point in time.
When the publicity about the Barbados Welcome Stamp was at an all-time high, I do not think that any other tourism marketing initiative received as much exposure and visibility as the Barbados Welcome Stamp. We were featured on all primetime media all over the world. And and our Prime Minister was equally featured to the point where I think she's become a legend in her own time, because people are very fond of her style of managing government, and particularly in this COVID-19 era. I have often and still do feel that this Welcome Stamp initiative is the most powerful tourism initiative. Do you see this as something that can go on beyond COVID-19, this working remotely in Barbados? What are your thoughts as a tourism professional?
Yeah, I think this is a stroke of genius. I think it is so clever. I think it balances out that risk to a population alongside the need for, the economy. to still thrive in whatever way it can. So it's a way of bringing in people who can sustain themselves here and, I suppose, support the local economy by living here for a year. I think there's a lot of other countries that have realize that this is a bit of a cracking idea and are following suit. And actually this morning I was given another interview to a travel magazine who are looking at a whole range of places that are doing similar initiatives in relation to long stay. So remote workers have been on the increase. So people who are location independent, they used to be called digital nomads. And, you know, whenever you look, actually, there's not many places in the world that are set up in a visa, I suppose, a visa respect to allow people to come and work remotely for a limited period of time. I would love to see it continue. I don't know what, you know, I can already imagine seeing myself here for longer than a year, but I don't know what my options would be, you know, kind of after a year. So, but I do think, I hope it's just not for the pandemic. I suppose the challenge and the issue that you run into is, at the end of the day, what the welcome stampers are taking up is probably reduced accommodation costs for people who would be kind of using that for kind of holiday lets and things. So I don't know how affordable it will be for people to kind of come, people who might be here now, kind of like myself, if they were paying kind of, you know, full price for accommodation and so on, because you might get edged out by kind of tourism a bit, which is understandable, because that's the whole purpose of the, you know, the bread and butter, which was here before. Yes,
the price of rentals has gone up, and tourists are causing a situation where property owners are giving preference to welcome stampers as opposed to locals and so on. So there are some other issues on the flip side to consider. Okay, well, now you have interacted with other welcome stampers. What are some of the complaints that you've heard, if any at all?
To be honest, I haven't heard many complain. However, the general people that I've met so far are people who have only been here for probably the same length of time as me. So we're probably in the honeymoon period, I would say, Charles. And it might, it might be a bit different going forward potentially. But no complaints so far. Mosquitoes generally, is a common one. But I think people have found it quite easy to settle in. I think it obviously helps with English being being the language here. So those are coming from English-speaking countries. That helps. Sometimes going to the supermarket will never be quick. Never. It takes a bit forever even getting to the checkout, and but is that not just the Caribbean laid back way of life? So you might just have to go with it. So those kind of things, which aren't going to stop anyone coming here.
You have a question coming from the chat room. And it's being from Ireland, have you found Barbados to be much more expensive, and the inability to find specific products, to be able to find comparative products, etc.? Okay, you get the drift. What are the comparisons in terms of prices and availability of products?
Great. So I would say price-wise, you are probably looking at London prices. That's how I would kind of compare it. I lived in London for quite a while. So London, Dublin prices, and probably in Ireland. So if you're coming from where I came from, Belfast, just before I moved here, it's definitely a step up, but I wouldn't say any more than your London prices. In terms of specific products, now I've been banging on about this because I'm still in shock, but there's kind of two UK kind of supermarket chains, which are Co-op and Waitrose, and you can get their products in masses, like fish fingers, pizzas, olives, you name it. So I haven't come across anything that I'm after that I haven't been able to find. The difference will be the imported stuff. If you're looking for imported brands, will be the price on it. But that's, it's an island. What do you expect? So I think, but do you know what? There's a way to, kind of live your life more inexpensive than I probably am, which is going to your local vendors, going to your fish markets, going to those who sell the fruit and veg by the roadside and so on. So at the moment, I've only went to the supermarket twice, and I haven't been kind of organized enough to get out and try some local vendors. I went on a food tour, was it last week? And that's given me a bit more confidence now to go and ask for different things to try, which might be a bit more local to Barbados.
Did I hear a knock on your door? That might be delivery of fish cakes, and
That would be great.
we have a question from Alex Collins. He's saying, I'm still trying to get my HR department to say yes. Any advice? So I imagine he's trying to get his HR department to agree to him coming to Barbados on the Welcome Stamp initiative. What would you advise Alex to do in a case like this?
So, do you know what? This is the thing. The world has moved on so much in the last year because of the pandemic. So there's obviously been really tragic, horrible things. It's really impacting people's lives. But actually, working practices have changed. And, Alex, I don't know what sector you work in and so on, but if you've been able to do your job from home for the last how many ever months, whether it was kind of months on and off, if you've been able to do your job at home and do it well from home and they're happy with with your productivity, there's absolutely no reason why you cannot be based here. I suppose from my perspective, when I was looking into it, I'm still a UK tax resident and, so I'm kind of still paying kind of tax in my home country because where my income's from. Yes. So, to an organization, I think you need to be challenging them really in terms of the why not. I know in the UK that, you have a legal right to request flexible working conditions. Now, I don't think they had the pandemic in mind or moving to Barbados in mind, but I would hope they're open to a conversation. And I suppose that what I would be asking them is, what is the downside for them? So for me personally, the time difference to the UK is -4 hours here at the moment, but I'd be up at 6 o'clock working, and I'm then on a 10 a.m. UK time, which is perfect. I go to bed early, and I work during kind of daylight hours, so it doesn't feel like much of an issue at all.
Yeah, I imagine companies would be concerned that there are too many distractions here. The beautiful weather, the beach, the warm ocean. Well, I dare say it is not very warm at the moment, but usually it is. But I imagine don't listen to Charles. It's very warm at the moment. As somebody from Ireland, it's definitely very warm at the moment. Oh no, I remember I was in the south of Italy a couple of years ago, and I went to a beautiful beach. The weather was amazing and the water was crystal clear, and I just dove into the water and it was freezing. Just to avoid my heart stopping, I just kept swimming, to keep myself moving. And when I told the bartender how cold it was compared to Barbados, and I told him the temperature of the water in Barbados is like 26, 27 degrees, he said, we make pasta in water with that temperature here in Italy. So it's a bit chilly. It's more chilly now than normal, particularly in the summertime. But I imagine companies are concerned about the distractions. Have you found that the distractions here affect your ability to do your work?
No, it's all about getting into a routine. So because I'm up at 6 a.m, I get straight onto it. I've a lot of Zoom calls, so actually I can't really be distracted because I'm online quite a bit. And I find it easier to get up and start working when there's a bit of sunshine in the morning outside. So I'm finding it relatively easily productive. I'm finding it more difficult in the afternoons once I have that kind of long break, maybe once UK time finishes. But I think it's all down to what you're like as a person. And, I think you weigh it up because people at home, there'll be other distractions at home, no doubt, so.
Absolutely. The soap operas and the series and so on. But to answer Alex's question, my feeling on this is that he's got to, perhaps maybe some testimonials from people on the Welcome Stamp that they're not distracted and they're able to have discipline and be able to do the work at hand. And also, like you said, challenge them on the why not. You're working at home, there are distractions there as well. So I think that that's about the best you can do. And I arm yourself with a few testimonials from people who have come on the Welcome Stamp initiative and are very productive in their work. Okay, I want to talk about your podcasts.
Great.
Okay, I deliberately did not ask many questions about your podcast yesterday in our meeting because I did not want to preempt the discussion. So let us talk about the podcast. For the benefit of the listeners, for mine as well, explain the podcast. What is it all about? What is the purpose? And what is the objective long-term for the podcast?
Sure. Well, it kind of does what it says in the tin. It's called Life in Barbados, a year on a paradise island. So very, very on brand with kind of coming here for a year in the welcome stamp. So as I mentioned earlier, I had kind of played about with a bit of a podcast. I've done about 15 episodes of the Bucket List podcast around last summertime, right through until about October. And I really enjoyed doing it, but it was a very particular kind of style. I would have guests on. It was a bit of a kind of Q&A. And I thought this time around, well, first of all, I thought coming to Barbados, what a perfect opportunity to document my time here. I think the purpose for it is a bit twofold, to be honest. One of it is for people who might be thinking about coming here, experiencing a bit more what it's like. So people who might want to work remotely and very much talking about my day-to-day life here. People who might be interested in coming visiting the island on holiday. So I'm also a travel agent. So, not right now because not much is booking, but, in time to come, if I've got somebody who says to me, oh, I'm thinking about going to Barbados, I can say, well, go and listen to my podcast. And I really want to use it as an opportunity to showcase different places, different experiences, different suppliers as well. Because, I kind of feel, I believe in kind of responsible tourism. And I think if I have a platform here, then that I can kind of showcase suppliers, people, entrepreneurs, whatever it is, that I should do so. So that's what it's about. And it's a kind of a mixture of interview, documentary kind of style. It's a bit of real life me out doing things. Lots of recording of my interactions, and then having a further follow-up chat with people as well.
How are people receiving you when you try to interview them? What is the reaction?
Very positive. And people have been approaching me as well, actually, and asking if they could be part of the podcast, which is fantastic. I think my experience has been that Bajans are very proud of the island, very proud of what they have to offer here, and they really want to share those stories with other people. So people are also very friendly and welcoming here, so there's no hesitation for a second about getting involved. You might have somebody who might say, oh, I'm not very good at speaking, I don't like the sound of my own voice, so but they will put me in touch with somebody else who's happy to speak about a similar thing.
So do I qualify to be on your podcast? How can I become part of your podcast?
Yeah, well, so anyone who's interested in becoming part of my podcast, drop me a line, and I've got a bit of a plan of the different things and the different topics I would like to cover, and then we'll see if we can match that up.
Well, thank you very much, but I was talking about me personally.
Oh, you personally.
Forget the audience. I want to be on your podcast first before them. Okay.
Excellent. Well, let's discuss it further and see what might be a suitable episode we can involve you in.
Okay, no, not a problem. I would love to be on that podcast. I'll just have to think of what I'll talk about. Anyway, maybe I should say try shutting me up. That's more realistic, right? Okay, well, we're half an hour into, actually more than half an hour into our discussion. So, but before we bring it to a close, how can people access your podcast?
So very easily can go to a link, which is www.life-in-barbados.com/podcast. And on there, you can find all the different platforms that the podcast is on, should that be Spotify or Apple, or failing that, just go into any of the major platforms and type in Life in Barbados, or even Barbados. It's trended at the moment in Spotify as the #1 Barbados podcast, which I'm very excited by. So should be easy to find.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Well, I don't think anyone is going to remember that URL. So after the show, you or I can post it at the bottom of the live stream, and for the benefit of those who would like to have a listen in to your podcast. Now, it is audio. Am I correct? Just audio, not video.
Yes. So a podcast is audio. So if you think about where YouTube was, maybe kind of 5 years ago, it's a new platform for engaging with people, and it's become very popular in the UK, in the US, and other parts of the world. Not too sure how much it's kind of hit Barbados yet, but it is audio. And the good thing is you can be out walking, have a listen, have it on in your earphones. You can be, a lot of people apparently tune in whilst they're commuting. There's probably not so much commuting happening these days, but you can get on about your daily life, clean the house whilst listening to it, whatever.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, Yvonne, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to join me today and discussing your journey to Barbados on the Barbados Welcome Stamp initiative. I hope that you will come back again and talk a bit more about other experiences as you go forward during your experience. You've been listening to another episode of Barbados Welcome Stamp Live. I'm your host, Charles Lewis, and today my guest was Yvonne Campbell from Ireland, the gracious Yvonne who loves pina colada and fish cakes. Okay.
I feel like that's going to start a song of some sort.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, well, if you want to be a guest on our show in the future, that is so simple. All you have to do is go to our Facebook group, Barbados Welcome Stamp, or to our website, which is barbadoswelcomestampers.com. Send us a message and we will invite you onto the show. We would love to hear all about your experiences in Barbados as a welcome stamper. I like that term, welcome stamper. I heard our Prime Minister use it sometime, and now I think I've protected that now as a trademark. Okay. Anyway, well, Yvonne, thanks again for joining us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to speaking to you again. I'm sure we're going to run into each other somewhere on the West Coast to have a drink. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks for having me, Charles.
You're welcome.